What would you do if the very foundation of your career, built on years of unwavering dedication, was suddenly pulled out from under you by the ones you trusted most? In today's story, the protagonist's choice is a masterclass in how to handle it. From the quiet streets of England, our story unfolds within a family business, a plumbing and gas company that was once a small, father and son operation. Our protagonist, Arthur, a determined 27-year-old, had dedicated his life to it. From the tender age of 15, Arthur had apprenticed with his father, Samuel, learning the trade from the ground up, eventually earning his plumbing and gas qualifications. He was the backbone of the business, expanding it over the last 2 years to a fleet of 50 vans, each staffed with a qualified plumber and a trainee. Meanwhile, Arthur's older brother, Michael, 30, had pursued a different path. He went to university, carving out a career as an accountant in the city. However, when COVID-19 cast its long shadow, Michael returned home and joined the family business, taking on accounting responsibilities. Life, however, was not without its trials. Samuel, at 55, had been battling asbestosis for 4 years. The illness was taking its toll, though his spirit remained unbroken. Arthur, despite the immense pressure of running the expanding business, still cherished his Fridays. It was the only day he'd get on the tools, working alongside his father for a half-day before they'd retreat to Arthur's place for some well-deserved beers. These moments were a precious constant in a life increasingly consumed by the demands of leadership. Then came the bombshell. Last month, Samuel gathered the family and announced his decision to step down due to his worsening health, desiring to spend more time with Arthur's mother, Eleanor. But the next part of his announcement shattered Arthur's world. Samuel was handing the business over to Michael and demoting Arthur from his acting CEO role. The news hit Arthur like a physical blow. 12 years of tireless work, starting when the company was just him and his father, only for Michael, who once dismissed the business as not worth his time, to waltz in and become the boss. Not only was he stripped of his leadership, but he was also demoted to a heating engineer with a devastating £20,000 pay cut. Michael, Arthur thought with a bitter pang, had no clue what we do or how to do it. Arthur confronted his father, seeking an explanation, a justification for this crushing betrayal. Samuel's words were a cold comfort. Michael deserved it for all he has done. He had a family, and he had went to uni, implications that cut Arthur to the core, as he had neither a family nor a university degree. The injustice of it all resonated deeply within the company. Many workers, loyal to Arthur, expressed their dismay and vowed to follow him if he left. This reveals Samuel's greatest fatal flaw, his sentimental and short-sighted decision-making, which ultimately sealed the fate of the family business. With a heavy heart, Arthur delivered his ultimatum to his father. If this was how he truly felt, Arthur would leave and start his own business. Since that day, silence had reigned between Arthur, Samuel, and Michael. The broader family, however, had been anything but silent. Thousands of calls and messages flooded Arthur's phone, accusing him of being ungrateful, throwing hurtful barbs that twisted the knife of betrayal deeper. To hear my father tell me in his own way he doesn't think I'm good enough was hard, and for my family to take his and my brother's side was even harder, Arthur confided to himself. The next morning, armed with resolve, Arthur began to execute his plan. He contacted large clients he had cultivated over the past 6 years, clients with significant, postponed projects from the COVID era. 20 of his colleagues, fueled by loyalty and a shared sense of injustice, pledged to join him. Having diligently saved nearly all his earnings over the past 12 years, Arthur felt he had the financial bedrock to launch his new venture. Yet, even in his hurt, Arthur's character shone through. He wasn't driven by a desire to destroy his brother or the business he had poured his life into. As much as I want to, he reflected at 5 a.m. in England, I've spent almost 13 years build it and I don't want to see anyone out of a job or for the business to die. A different path beckoned. At 8 a.m., Arthur set out to meet his father for breakfast, hoping for a true explanation, a deeper understanding. Despite his doubts, he loved his family, and he envisioned a future where his own children would know them. The morning was fraught with unspoken tension. When Arthur arrived at his parents' house, his mother, Eleanor, opened the door, her face tear-streaked and swollen from crying. Samuel appeared, and they left for breakfast in strained silence. It wasn't until the drive back that Samuel finally spoke. asking to pull over. It was then, for the first time, that Arthur saw his father weep. Arthur, his voice raw with pain, demanded to know why. Samuel's initial evasiveness crumbled under Arthur's persistent questioning, revealing a truth that stunned him. Samuel felt he owed it to my brother for not being about for him as much as me when we were growing up, and there was times my brother needed him but we was working. 12 years of his life, half his existence, dedicated to building the business, only to be cast aside for such a reason. The revelation hurt more deeply than Arthur could express. Samuel, to Arthur's surprise, was not angry. He seemed remorseful, acknowledging that he had been shown Arthur's online post. Eleanor, Samuel confessed, had been devastated by the comments, fearing Arthur would never speak to them again. Samuel admitted that reading the comments made him realize he should have split the business, acknowledging that both brothers were essential for its continued success. He apologized for never expressing his pride in Arthur, mistakenly believing Arthur knew. I couldn't believe it after 12 years of hard work, that was his reasoning. Arthur later recounted, the sting of betrayal still fresh, but the apology came with a bitter caveat: Michael had full control, and Samuel had no say. Michael, Samuel admitted, would never agree to a 50-50 split. Samuel then pleaded with Arthur to return, insisting Michael would need him, but Arthur, standing firm, refused. He had tried to make it work for 3 weeks, enduring Michael's dismissiveness and his assertions that he knew how to run a business, despite his ignorance of the daily operations. Why work my ass off there when I could do the same work and make more money for myself? Arthur reasoned. Samuel broke down, lamenting that he had destroyed the family. The profound realization of Arthur's true value to the company had come far too late. Your dad made a business decision, and he made the one that any rational business owner would. And you cut off your entire family because you were mad that they didn't let you live the fantasy of climbing the corporate ladder from laborer to CEO. One online comment had harshly stated, but another offered a different perspective: I'm sorry that your family undervalues you and your work. And a third insightfully remarked, parents, I can't believe you aren't willing to make your brother rich while making less money for yourself. We said sorry. What more do you want? Asterisk looks away. The vindication was swift. Arthur had productive Zoom calls with several clients, all of whom agreed to send signed proposals for upcoming work, with thankfully non-conflicting start dates. 3 more colleagues, independent of Arthur's influence, resigned from the family business, informing Samuel of their decision to join Arthur. Their loyalty deeply touched Arthur. With 3 vans he owned and tools he had accumulated over the years, Arthur had everything he needed to embark on his new venture. He looked forward to sharing this triumph with his future children. A call from his father invited Arthur to dinner. Hesitantly, Arthur agreed, hoping it was a step towards reconciliation, but upon arrival, the atmosphere was thick with resentment. Eleanor avoided his gaze, and Michael acted as if Arthur didn't exist. Samuel led Arthur and Michael into his office, and without preamble, asked Arthur when he was returning to the company, stressing their need for him early Monday morning. Arthur couldn't believe his ears. He informed them both he was not coming back and had started his own company. What does he mean we? Arthur challenged, gesturing to Michael. You gave the business to him. Michael, losing his temper, demanded to know why Arthur would leave if he truly cared about the company. Arthur, his own temper flaring, retorted with choice words, asserting his 12 years of dedication and hard work that made the company successful. Unlike Michael, who swans in and takes all the glory, he refused to be treated with such disrespect. He then told Michael to K off so he could speak to his father. Arthur pressed Samuel, demanding to know the meaning of their earlier breakfast, the apologies, only to be expected to come running back. Samuel couldn't even meet his gaze. With a final goodbye to his cousins, nieces, and nephews, Arthur walked out, writing for 3 hours, the weight of the family's betrayal heavy on him. In the weeks that followed, Arthur's new business thrived, with a steady influx of work and healthy profits. He even planned for expansion by year-end. His personal life blossomed too. His fiancée was happily planning their November wedding, determined to have the wedding of her dreams. Arthur, though, insisted on wearing his kilt. Waking up to her every day, Arthur found immense happiness. She was his unwavering support through everything. His father and brother, however, continued their silent treatment, refusing to attend the wedding, though they hadn't even been invited. Eleanor called Arthur's fiancée, but spoke only of wedding details, still unwilling to address Arthur directly. In stark contrast, his fiancée's family, his soon-to-be in-laws, were incredibly supportive, helping with wedding preparations and everything else, for which Arthur was profoundly grateful. Some other family members, recognizing their error, had backed off and apologized, seeking to make amends. Arthur and his fiancée were excitedly planning to start a family after their marriage. The story of Arthur is a testament to resilience and self-worth. It highlights that sometimes, the greatest act of loyalty is to yourself, especially when those closest to you fail to see your value. What would you have done in Arthur's position?